Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for attending the PASA 51st Annual Conference. My presentation will be based on vector-borne disease that is common on the African continent. But first, what is a vector? A vector is a living organism that transmits an infectious agent from an infected animal to a human or another animal. Examples of vectors include mosquitoes, ticks, flies, fleas, and lice. What is a vector-borne disease? These are human illnesses caused by parasites, viruses, and bacteria that are transmitted by vectors. In the next slides, I have tabulated some examples of vector-borne diseases. Here are the vector, the disease called, and the type. The vector, the disease called, and the type of pathogen. Same in this, the vector, starting with aquatic snails, ending with sandflies, the disease caused, and the type of pathogen. And the last slide, same thing, starts with ticks, ends with tsetse flies, the disease caused, the type of pathogen. So my focus for this evening is on the family Calicidae, which is mosquitoes. And this family is split up into two subfamilies, namely the Anophelinae and Calicinae. Tonight I will be focusing more on the Anopheles mosquito and the disease that is associated with the Anopheles mosquito, malaria. What is malaria? Malaria is a life-threatening disease that is spread to humans by the female Anopheles mosquito, which has been infected by a parasite known as Plasmodium. There are 5 species of malaria that affect humans, namely Plasmodium falciparum, which is the most common, Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium ovale, Plasmodium malariae, and Plasmodium knowlesi. This picture demonstrates the malarial parasites during the stages of their life cycles. This is a map of the geographic distribution of malaria. The geographic distribution of malaria depends mainly on the climatic conditions like temperature, humidity, and rainfall. All these conditions are found in the tropical and subtropical areas where the Anopheles mosquito can survive, and the malarial parasites are able to complete their growth cycle in these mosquitoes. The temperature is very critical. For example, the parasite Plasmodium falciparum cannot survive in temperatures below 20 degrees Celsius, as the growth cycle can't be completed. Therefore, the parasite and the disease cannot be transmitted. So in this map, we can see that in the blue, these countries don't have malaria transmission is not known to occur, and in the yellow, it occurs in some places, but in areas that are orange, it occurs throughout those areas. So the next slide we'll be looking at is the female Anopheles mosquito in appearance. So they rest at an acute angle. They have dark and pale scales on their wings. Their veins on their wings are arranged in blocks, and the palps on the female are almost as long as the proboscis, whereas the male palps are swollen on the end. Here are 2 examples of the Anopheles mosquito. As you can see, they've got dark and pale blocks on their wings. Unfortunately, you can't see the veins as well. And you can see that the proboscis and the palps are very long. So this is the Asian Anopheles mosquito, and this is the African Anopheles mosquito. How is malaria transmitted? Malaria gets transmitted by people being bitten by an infected female Anopheles mosquito. Only Anopheles mosquitoes can transmit malaria. These mosquitoes must have been infected from a previous blood meal. When a mosquito bites an infected person, a small amount of blood is taken in, which contains the microscopic malarial parasites. About a week later, when the mosquito takes its next blood meal, these parasites mix with the mosquito's saliva and are injected into the person being bitten. This picture demonstrates the life cycle of malaria. So the malaria parasites undergo development in both an invertebrate vector, which is the mosquito, and a vertebrate host, which is the human. When a malaria-infected mosquito takes a blood meal, it injects saliva along with sporozoites into the human. These sporozoites migrate to infect the human liver cells and mature into schizoids and then rupture, releasing merozoites that can infect the red blood cells. The merozoites are matured via asexual reproduction. Some of the parasites undergo sexual reproduction, which allows them to become gametocytes. So, the gametocytes, the male gametocytes, which are microgametocytes, and female gametocytes, which are macrogametocytes, are ingested by the female Anopheles mosquito during a blood meal. The parasite's multiplication in the mosquito is known as the sporogenic cycle. While in the mosquito's stomach, the microgametes penetrate the macrogametes, generating zygotes. The zygotes in turn become immotile, elongated, which invade the midgut of the mosquito, where they develop into an oocyst. The oocysts grow and rupture and release sporocytes, which make their way into the mosquito's salivary glands. The inoculation of the sporocytes into a new human perpetrates the malarial life cycle. The most common and early symptoms of malaria are fever, headache, and chills. Symptoms usually start 10 to 15 days of being bitten by an infected mosquito. Symptoms can be mild for some people, and especially for those who've had a malaria infection before. Some severe symptoms are extreme tiredness, fatigue, jaundice, and anemia. The anemia and jaundice occurs due to the loss of red blood cells. Malarial paroxysm consists of 3 successive stages. It's caused by the hemolysis of infected blood cells, red blood cells, the release merozoites, and the malaria antigens, and the inflammatory response they elicit. So the first stage is known as the cold stage. This is where the patient has abrupt chills, a fever, a headache, and has lots of body aches, and the temperature rises between 39 to 41 degrees. The patient will also have a rapid and thready pulse. This normally lasts for 15 to 60 minutes. The second stage of the malarial paroxysm is the hot stage. This is the feeling of extreme heat. The headache becomes throbbing. The skin feels like it's burning, and it lasts about 2 to 6 hours. The third stage is known as the sweating stage. This is when the fever falls, there's profuse sweating, extreme fatigue, and lasts about 2 to 4 hours. Treatment. Malaria is treated with prescription drugs to kill the parasite. And also the types of drugs and the length of treatment depends on which type of malaria parasite you have, the severity of your symptoms, whether you're pregnant, and your age. Prevention. Malaria can be prevented by avoiding mosquito bites and taking medicines. It is important to take medicines and chat to your doctor about the malaria, especially when traveling to those high-risk areas. To lower the risk of getting malaria is to use mosquito nets as well as mosquito repellents, to put screens on windows and doors, to wear long pants and long sleeves to cover your skin, and to ensure that you are vaccinated, especially when traveling to high-risk countries. Thank you so much for your time, and enjoy the conference further.